On Justin Trudeau's watch, Khalistanis went on the rampage in Canada today, desecrating the Indian flag and burning effigies of the Indian Prime Minister. This amid escalating tensions between India and Canada and India and the United States as well. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. These shocking scenes of the desecration of the Indian flag were led, not surprisingly, and once again, by Khalistani groups that went on the rampage in Canada. This is all happening on Justin Trudeau's watch. The Canadian leader has long been accused by India and by ordinary Indians of basically protecting and shielding Khalistani separatists and Khalistani terrorists on Canadian soil. The killing of one such Khalistani, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, is now at the epicenter of a fierce battle between Canada and India. India has also named a Canadian official of the Canada Border Police as being wanted for terror activities in Punjab. Meanwhile, Nijjar's lawyer Gurpatwan Pannun is at the heart of tensions between India and the United States of America. The US has charged an ex-RANW agent for being involved in a plot to take out Gurpatwan Pannun, a man who has made open calls for violence against India, Indian airliners, India's parliament, and has openly spoken about balkanizing India. The most incisive commentary on this entire issue has come from our guest today. I want to welcome to the program Kapil Komireddi. Kapil Komireddi has a piece out in the Globe and Mail that basically underscores how Indians across political affiliations see Canada as the sanctuary of choice, quote unquote, for Sikh terrorists, also underlining the point that Khalistan is a dead and discredited issue here in India. We'll have excerpts of that column coming up on our screen in a moment from now. Kapil, thank you for your time. And I think the point that this column comes from you is so very important because actually, you're not a fan of the Modi government. You have been a vociferous critic of the Modi government. You've also been a critic at different points of the Gandhi family. The reason I'm mentioning your political affiliation or your political positions at this point in your writings is only to make the point that you're not writing what you are in your column, which parts of which are on the screen, as a supporter or as a BJP voter. You are writing this as a proud Indian, as an enraged Indian, reflecting the sentiments, I would say, of most of us or a majority of us. What do you think Canada and large sections of the Western media are not understanding at this point?
Right. I think you and I are defenders or believers in pluralism, and it is staggering. Part of the reason I oppose Modi is because his ideology seeks to privilege one set of people against the other. And that is exactly what Khalistanis seek to do in a truncated part of India. So it's staggering to me that people who claim to oppose Modi abroad, who always use Hindu nationalist in front of his name, are astonishingly quiet and coy about what Khalistan actually means. Khalistan is a Sikh supremacist cause that seeks to erect a pro-Christian state where non-Sikhs are non-entities, basically. And this was a cause that peaked in the 1980s, and you know the history of it. Thousands and thousands of people killed. It culminated in the assassination of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. But that is our tragedy. What I was trying to argue in a Canadian newspaper is I was never ever exonerating a crime. If India is indeed behind this crime, then the people who are behind this crime should be punished. I don't believe any nation should be assassinating the citizen of another country, or indeed of its own country. My argument really was, does Canada really want to be a country that becomes the sanctuary of choice for aspiring mass murderers? And indeed, it's home to people who've actually engaged in mass murder. Before 9/11, the worst atrocity in the skies was Air India flight in 1984, in which 329 people were killed. Nobody has been sent to prison for that. Nobody has actually suffered for that. And it's extraordinary that Canadian politicians, when they talk about that, when they talk about Canada, they never mention it. They suffer a kind of amnesia. And the point I was trying to make is that what Justin Trudeau is doing is inimical to India. It's offensive to India, but it is no less insulting or harmful to Canada in the long run. They are importing people who do not really pledge allegiance to Canada. They're never going to integrate as Canadian citizens. They're just invoking values which they actually reject. right? They're speaking the correct words about multiculturalism, minority rights. These are all slogans for them. What they want to do is enact terrorist acts on foreign soil in the hope of, as one of the characters here said, balkanize India.
Let's pick up Kanishka. If we look at the let me just mute you for a second while I ask my question. If we look at the Kanishka bombing, 329 dead and nearly 100 were children. A majority of them were Canadian citizens. They may have been of Indian origin, but they were actually citizens of Canada. Trudeau doesn't really care about them. No justice has been served. The perpetrators of this bombing were recently celebrated at a Gurudwara in Canada. This is the point that I think the Western media, the Western commentary that has cast this entire issue as some sort of morality play has entirely missed, Kapil.
Yes, what is extraordinary, Barkha, when you think about this, is that those people who died on the Air India flight were Canadian citizens, as you put it, but their lives didn't seem to matter. For a man who claims that the life of one Sikh militant who was killed, a man who hung out with terrorists in Pakistan, posed with AK-47, incited violence in a sermon against India, he deserved to be put on trial, not killed. I'm not advocating that. But his life seems to have driven Canada to madness, to the Canadian politicians, Canadian leadership. But the death of hundreds of Canadian citizens didn't matter at all. Is that because I do wonder, had they been white, would the Canadian establishment behave as indifferently as it has done with that bombing? I sometimes wonder that.
There's a question for you from one of our viewers, Saurabh. He says in his piece, Mr. Komireddi states that Canada should come to reckon with its apathy, not towards, but I think he means on the Khalistan issue. But hasn't Canada, like France and UK, deemed these as immigrant issues to be put in silos? I think this is a really important question because for a lot of ignorant people in the West, Sikhs and Khalistanis are interchangeable entities, and nothing could be further from the truth. The very fact that even the US indictment documents on Gurpatwan Pannun, the Khalistani terrorist who was the lawyer for Nijjar, they cast him as a critic of the Modi government. They cast him as a Sikh leader. I just find it disgusting and shockingly ignorant because Sikhs are proud, patriotic Indians. A Pew survey actually shows that 95% identified as proud Indians and 70% actually said that those who disrespect India cannot be called true Sikhs. Then you have Canada, America, the Western press calling Gurpatwan Pannu, Hardeep Singh Nijjar Sikh leaders. This conflation between Sikh and Khalistani in the West, Kapil, how do you react to that?
Well, it is more than anything else, it is offensive to Sikhs, right? Sikhs are overrepresented in all of India's institutions, and it's very patronizing for me to measure their patriotism. But I know that they are overwhelmingly in all the institutions of defense, they are overrepresented, and that speaks for itself. And you just cited that Pew survey, which I actually included in the original draft of my piece, but we had to drop it for reasons of length. When you talk about this man, Pannun, after the attack on Israel on the 7th of October last year, he went on television and he said, we are going to emulate Hamas. This is a man who Western media has appointed as a spokesman, as the tribune of the oppressed Sikhs of India. And it's staggering to me, the ignorance in which this sort of commentary is fertilized. And I don't know how to dialogue with them, how to explain to them that, I abhor everything this government stands for. And an overwhelming majority of Sikhs, even the people who live in Canada, I think there are about 800,000 Sikhs who live in Canada, this tiny minority of Khalistan supporting Canadians are very well organized. They're extremely well organized. They raise finances and they have this ethnocratic dream, and they pursue that very vigorously. They go out in marches, they intimidate people, they attack India's consulates, they threaten Indian diplomats. But the thing is, the decent people just stay quiet. They just get on with their lives because they have things to do. They have, people to employ, taxes to pay. These people are idlers. They have nothing to give to society. And ultimately, I think they will end up being enemies of Canada. Canada will suffer in the long term. And when they do, I assure you, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when these people end up being, a thorn in the side of Canada, Canadians, there will be great commentary on how Canada has failed to integrate these people. I urge you, your listeners, your viewers, to read an article by Omar Aziz, who was a foreign policy advisor to Justin Trudeau. He published an op-ed last year in the Globe and Mail in which he laid out how he was Trudeau's advisor, and he laid out how Trudeau absolutely destroyed Canada's foreign policy, not only with India, but with Latin American and African countries, especially with India. He just wanted the votes of the Sikh community. And he admits that India repeatedly chased Trudeau, repeatedly sent him requests saying these are really serious red lines for us. And Trudeau refused to, just neglected them. And he says the foreign policy establishment of Canada refused to take that seriously.
Now, I would never normally platform men like Gurpatwant Pannun, but it's become very important to play this clip out that I'm just going to do because I kind of urge literally every single person who's writing on this issue in the Western media to hear this clip and then reflect on whether their casting of either Pannun or Nijjar is accurate. Take a look.
We are asking the Sikh Panth, do not fly Air India. 19 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਗਲੋਬਲ ਬਲੌਕੇਡ ਤੇ 에ਅਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ। ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਵਾਲਿਓ 19 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 에ਅਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ 'ਚ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਜਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਰਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਔਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਸੁਨੇਹਾ ਹੈ ਭਾਰਤ ਨੂੰ, ਇੰਦਰਾ ਗਾਂਧੀ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ 에ਅਰਪੋਰਟ 19 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਬੰਦ ਰਹੇਗਾ। ਇਹ 19 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਉਹੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਦਣ ਵਰਲਡ ਟੈਰਰ ਕੱਪ ਦਾ ਫਾਈਨਲ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਭਾਰਤ ਨੇ, ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਨਸਲਕੁਸ਼ੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਇਹ 에ਅਰਪੋਰਟ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਬੇਅੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ, ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਸਤਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ 에ਅਰਪੋਰਟ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਕਰਵਾਇਆ ਜਾਏਗਾ। ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਜੰਗਾਂ ਜਨੂਨ ਨਾਲ ਜਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਜੰਗ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਕਰਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਜੰਗ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਡਮ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਚੱਲ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਹੈ। ਭਾਰਤੀ ਹੁਕੂਮਤ ਦੇ ਟੈਂਕ ਤੇ ਤੋਪ ਇਸ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੀ ਜੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੱਖ 1.25 ਲੱਖ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੜਨ ਨੂੰ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਹੈ। ਜਨੂਨ ਹੈ ਆਜ਼ਾਦੀ ਦਾ ਤੇ ਹਥਿਆਰ ਹੈ ਕਲਮ ਦਾ। We are going to break the backbone of Indian economic system and we are going to balkanize India। 19 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਵਾਲਿਓ 에ਅਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਜਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਰਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ।
I mean, it just makes my blood boil. And just to translate the Punjabi for anybody who didn't get that, he's basically saying, don't travel Air India. Your life will be in danger. We will target Air India. We will make sure that the airport is no longer named after Indira Gandhi, who of course was assassinated by Khalistanis. We will rename the airport to the names of the assassins of Indira Gandhi. We will break the Indian economic system. We will balkanize India. This man in the US indictment documents is described as a critic of the Modi government and a Sikh activist. I just find it shocking, Kapil. I really find it shocking.
These are the rants and ravings of a mad dog. I look at him and I think he's a moron and he's a mad dog, and he's such a coward that he lives in America and incites other Sikhs to kill themselves and kill others in the cause that he wants to pursue from America. And there have always been cowards like him, and he will not be able to break India because India, Punjab remains in India and Sikhs remain in India because overwhelming majority of Sikhs want to remain in India, right? And this man, his first act was to leave India. He's taken the citizenship of America and Canada, and I don't think he feels any allegiance to either of those countries. Their characterization of him is their business. But I wrote an op-ed last year in the New York Times in which I actually referenced what he said. And they put a disclaimer saying he didn't mean what he said, or he'd withdrawn his statement. He's effectively saying that don't travel by Air India, don't fly Air India on the 19th of November, your life's threatened. I imagine how the Americans would react if somebody from Syria in 2013, 2014 had put out a recording like that. Don't travel United Airways, we're going to break the back. They expect Indians to behave differently. It's not. I absolutely do not believe that anyone should be killed for holding views. They should be tried if they break the law. But Americans simply do not follow the standards they prescribe to others. They just don't.
Exactly. I was just going to come to that, but before that, couple, before that, the argument you make in your column is that it's these are Indians of all political hues, more or less closing ranks. And our friends at Sea Voter, Yashwant Deshmukh, led a survey on what Indians are thinking about what's unfolding between India and Canada, and it's pretty interesting because it actually completely confirms your intuition. This is actually using data to confirm what you felt intuitively or anecdotally. 54.2% of Indians, both NDA and opposition voters, blame Canada for the breakdown in relations. 51% of Indians, both NDA and opposition voters, say India's response is justified. 67.4% of Indians say it's Canada with the support to Sikh separatists that soured relations long ago. 65.6% of Indians say that the Lawrence Bishnoi link being claimed by Canada is absolutely bogus. This is such important data because it actually tells you these are, yes, the NDA voters may be marginally higher in their responses, but if you look at the collective response of all Indian voters across political affiliations, there is support for the Indian position. There is enragement with Justin Trudeau. There is a sense of Western hypocrisy. There is a sense of revulsion at the entire sort of fomenting of or the attempt to revive Khalistani terrorists or separatists on Canadian soil. So I just wanted to share this data with you because it completely reconfirms the argument that you made in your piece.
Yeah, I felt that instinctively because I know that I've been in Punjab and I've interviewed a lot of people, and there's no affection. In fact, there is contempt, pure contempt for the idea of. Somebody once said to me in Punjab, an army officer said, you'd be hard pressed to fill a wedding hall with all the Khalistani supporters in Punjab, and it's the ignorance to go to a country, to report on a country, and really not know, to spend years, months, come as a reporter to a country, and not be able to grasp that there is no support for Khalistan, that India is no paradise for minorities. But Sikhs are not among the oppressed people in India. The Sikh minority in India is not oppressed. To be here and not be able to put that across, if I were posted in a foreign country, I hope I'm never so incompetent in reporting that country. In fact, many Indians who write from foreign countries write with great nuance. And I never cease to be astonished by the generalization, the almost cartoonish caricaturization of India that happens in the international press. There are some serious violations of a lot of bad things have happened in India, but the preeminent critics of that, I'm speaking to one, right? You're among those. The people who have hurled the first stone against this regime are Indians. It's Indians who stood up to this government. It's Indians who actually voted this government out. That is why it is now a coalition government. You don't need to be, this patronizing idea.
I mean, not voted the government out, not voted the government out, to be strictly accurate. I mean, the BJP's slipped below majority. Yes.
I said that they're now part of a it's now a coalition government, right? India is now back as part of a coalition.
Yes.
They voted the BJP out of power effectively. They've had to stitch together a coalition, and it is the Indians who stood up to that, right? So this idea that someone's going to rescue India, Indians are going to rescue India, and I think Indians want to keep India united. An overwhelming majority of Indians feel Indian, and they want to keep India united. And Pannun is free to rave and rant as he pleases. But if he's deemed to be a serious security threat to India, then India is within its right to seek his extradition. And years ago, I was in Pakistan in 2009 after the attack in Bombay, and I went there. And I was astonished to find that, this is a country, all the arms that were aimed at India had been supplied to Pakistan by America, right? And the man who was a double agent, who had prior knowledge of this attack, David Headley, is in an American prison. And I think
cut a deal with the Americans to be in prison so that he would never be extradited to India.
Right. The one silver lining in this, I think, the one good thing out of this, I hope it leads finally to a serious reassessment of our almost deranged pro-American lurch in the last 15, 20 years. Our governing elites, our intellectual elites, almost, lost their minds. They got swept up. And I've been writing about this consistently. I have nothing against America. We should have excellent relations with America. But India has always thrived as an independent power, and we should always maintain a distance from all of these powers, because we will never be accepted as part of that club.
I just want to end with exactly a question about American hypocrisy. You opened this conversation by saying that you don't endorse an extrajudicial killing. And that's a principle I share. But it's very difficult to look at this as a moral debate, as it has been presented by both Canada and the United States of America, not just because of who they're defending, Gurpatwan Pannun and Hardeep Singh Nijjar, but because the last few months have been replete with Americans celebrating Israeli action against several men that they consider to be terrorists in other countries, in other nations that regard themselves as sovereign nations. We have seen the same Trudeau tweet out a congratulations when Osama bin Laden was taken out by the Americans in Pakistan. Again, I'm not defending in any way the men who were taken out. I see whether it's the Hezbollah head or the Al-Qaeda chief as terrorists who I think countries have the right to take action against. But when the same countries lecture a country like India, it's a different debate. Was this like that? Should our government tell us more about what's going on? I would say yes. But to take that lecture from the Americans at this point, or the Canadians at this point, that just feels like just rich in hypocrisy.
And I don't want to take the lectures, and I don't, I have many friends in America, and I've people who serve in government or in positions in bureaucracy, and I've spoken to them last year about this. I spoke about this, and they say their real issue seems to be that India did this on Western soil, or allegedly did this on Western soil. That's one thing they couldn't abide. And here's the hierarchy: you could do this elsewhere, but don't do it here. I just think that what America does, or what Israel does, or what France does, Barack Obama, the paragon of decency in America right now. How many people did he kill? How much blood does he have in his hands? And nobody talks about that in America on the left. And there's a great book by Richard Seymour called The Liberal Defense of Murder. There is a long tradition of this in the West, of defending murder in the name of liberalism. But it is precisely because it is wrong that I don't want India to emulate it. I don't want India to pay the compliment of imitation to them. I genuinely, this is not a soundbite, I genuinely believe that everyone is entitled to due process. And we were built upon that idea. And that is why Indira Gandhi's murderers were not killed, were not shot dead. They were, they were kept alive. They were taken to hospital. They were given treatment. They were put on trial. The man who came to Bombay and shot dead dozens of people from
Ajmal Kasab, was given a lawyer by India.
Given a trial. We've never seen David Headley. He was given a trial. And that is something we should never lose. And that is, we're not perfect, but we should aspire to be perfect. And that is part of what we want to be. And I hope we can be that.
We leave it there. Kapil Komireddi has an excellent piece on the India-Canada standoff in the Globe and Mail. If you haven't read it, do Google for it. It'll show up. It's one of the most read, most talked about columns in the last 2 days. Kapil, always a pleasure. See you soon and take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.